So you're sitting there scrolling through your phone, probably procrastinating on something important. You don't even realize that the reason that you can do that is because some dude like 200 years ago was messing around with stuff in his basement and accidentally changed everything. I mean, literally everything. Everything you do today exists because someone somewhere decided to poke at something they probably shouldn't have been poking at. So here are some experiments that literally shape the world you're living in right now. Pavlov's dogs. Okay, so this Russian guy, Ivan Pavlov, was studying digestion in dogs back in the 1890s. Just normal science stuff, you know? Measuring saliva and all that gross biological things. But then he noticed something weird. Every time his assistant walked into the room, the dog would start drooling before they even saw food. And Pavlov was like, wait, hold up, that's not supposed to happen. So what did he do? He started ringing a bell every time he fed the dogs. Did this over and over again until eventually he could just ring the bell and boom, the dogs would start drooling even without food present. That's it. That's the whole experiment. But here's why it matters. This dude basically discovered that you could train behavior through association, and this opened up the entire field of behavioral psychology. Now, we use the concept everywhere. Advertising works on this. Your Netflix autoplay works on this. Even your phone's notifications are designed to trigger that same Pavlovian response. Pavlov just wanted to study dog spit and ended up explaining why you can't stop checking Instagram every 5 minutes. Thanks a lot, Ivan. Real quick, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, then subscribe to the channel because you shouldn't miss what we're bringing up next. Gregor Mendel and his Pea Plants. So there's this monk named Gregor Mendel chilling in a monastery garden in the 1860s, and he's just growing pea plants. Nothing crazy, right? Wrong. This guy was about to accidentally invent the entire field of genetics, and he did it with vegetables. Mendel started crossing different types of pea plants, tall ones with short ones, green ones with yellow ones, and he noticed patterns, like really specific patterns. Some traits would show up in offspring, and some wouldn't. He started doing math about it, actual math with plants. He figured out that traits are passed down through what we now call genes, and although he had no idea what genes were, he just knew that something was being inherited. The crazy part? Nobody cared when he published this in 1866. People were like, cool story bro, nice peas. And then he died without anyone recognizing his work. It wasn't until like the 1900s that scientists rediscovered his papers and were like, holy crap, this monk figured out inheritance decades ago. Now, because of Mendel's pea obsession, we have genetic engineering, we understand diseases, we can do DNA tests and find out that we're 2% Neanderthal or whatever. Without this dude crossing pea plants, we wouldn't have modern medicine as we know it, all because a monk had too much time on his hands. Pasteurization. Louis Pasteur in the 1860s was dealing with a very French problem. Wine kept going bad and the wine industry was losing money. So they asked Pasteur to figure it out because apparently wine is more important than anything else in France. Priorities, I guess. Pasteur discovered that tiny microorganisms were making the wine spoil, and he figured out that if you heat the liquid to a specific temperature, you kill those little jerks without ruining the taste. Boom, problem solved. He called this process pasteurization, because scientists love naming things after themselves. But here's where it gets important. Someone was like, hey, if this works for wine, what about milk? And yeah, it worked for milk too. Before pasteurization, people were just drinking milk with bacteria partying in it and getting sick all the time. Tuberculosis, typhoid fever, all kinds of nasty stuff was spreading through milk. Pasteurization basically made milk safe to drink and saved millions of lives, especially kids who were dying from contaminated milk all the time. Now you can grab milk from a store and are not worrying about dying from it because Pasteur wanted to save some wine first. What a time to be alive. Penicillin. Okay, so Alexander Fleming was a bit of a messy scientist back in 1926. He went on vacation and left his lab kinda dirty with petri dishes just sitting there growing bacteria. You know, normal disgusting lab stuff. When he came back, one of the dishes had mold growing on it, and he was about to throw it away like any normal person would. But then he noticed something weird. The bacteria around the mold was dead. Like the mold was killing the bacteria. And Fleming, being the curious dude he was, started investigating this mold. It was a type called penicillin, and it was producing a substance that could kill bacteria without harming human cells. Fleming called it penicillin and published his findings, but nobody really cared about it much at first. It wasn't until World War II that other scientists figured out how to mass produce it, and suddenly you had a drug that could cure infections that were basically death sentences before this. Strep throat, pneumonia, syphilis, all could be treated now. Penicillin saved so many soldiers in World War II that is credited with helping win the war, and after that it became the first modern antibiotic. We've since discovered tons of other antibiotics, but penicillin started dull because Fleming was too lazy to clean up his lab before vacation. Honestly, goals. The double helix. 1953. James Watson and Francis Crick walk into a pub in Cambridge and announce that they figured out the secret of life. Bit dramatic, but they actually kind of did. These guys discovered the structure of DNA, the double helix. That iconic twisted letter thing that you've definitely seen before. Now, here's the thing. They didn't do this alone. There was this woman, Rosalind Franklin, who took this incredible X-ray image of DNA called Photo 51, and Watson and Crick basically used her work without permission. Franklin died young and didn't get credit until way later, which is messed up. But that's a whole nother story about how women in science got screwed over. Anyway, figuring out DNA structure meant that we could finally understand how genetic information is stored and copied. This was huge. We're talking about understanding how life itself works, how traits pass from parent to child, how cells divide, how mutations happen, literally everything. Because of this discovery, we now have genetic testing. We can identify criminals through DNA. We understand hereditary diseases. We're doing gene therapy and CRISPR gene editing. We're literally editing the code of life now. All because some scientists look at Franklin's X-ray and figured out that DNA looks like a twisted ladder. The implications are insane, and we're still discovering new things from this one experiment. The Manhattan Project. Okay, so this one is complicated because it changed the world, but not exactly in a feel-good way. During World War II, the US government got a bunch of the smartest physicists together in secret locations and told them to figure out how to split the atom and make it go boom. The Manhattan Project started in 1942 and involved people like Robert Oppenheimer. Albert Einstein contributed to the theory, and thousands of scientists and engineers working in places like Los Alamos. They were racing against Nazi Germany to develop the atomic bomb first. On July 16, 1945, they tested the first atomic bomb in New Mexico, called the Trinity Test, and it worked way better than expected. Oppenheimer famously quoted Hindu scripture after seeing it, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." Bit dramatic, but also accurate. Then the US dropped 2 atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan, killing over 200,000 people and ending World War II, but also starting the nuclear age. Suddenly, humanity had the power to destroy itself completely. The Cold War happened because of this. Nuclear weapons became the ultimate threat. But it's not all doom and gloom. Nuclear physics from the Manhattan Project also gave us nuclear energy, medical imaging, treatments for cancer, and a deeper understanding of physics itself. It's just wild that one experiment gave humanity both the power to destroy civilization and also help cure diseases. That's the definition of a double-edged sword right there. The Manhattan Project proved that science can change the world in massive ways, but it also showed that just because we can do something doesn't always mean we should. The ethical questions from this experiment are still being debated today, and probably will be forever. It literally split history into before and after nuclear weapons existed. So yeah, there you go, some experiments that actually changed everything you do today, because someone decided to mess around with pea plants, dog drool, moldy petri dishes, or atomic particles. Science is basically organized curiosity with really high stakes, and sometimes the smallest observations lead to the biggest changes in human history. Wild stuff. Now if you really enjoyed the video, then consider liking the video and subscribe to the channel as well. We'll soon be up with more interesting and anticipating contents as well, and I'll see you in the next video.